All right, so now you gotta talk about picking some colors out. You want to pick colors based on emotion, not reality. If I try and see you mixing skin colors and things of that nature, I will take your paper, I will rip it in half and make you trace a new one. No, we're going for emotion here. This particular project is about an object that connects you to another person. So what I really want you to think about are the emotions you connect to that person, but I want you to be specific. All colors have an emotional connection, and they're pretty universal. They're not entirely universal depending on country of origin and things like that, but here in America we have a pretty standard set. If you think of someone being really, really mad, and you had to associate that to a color, you know exactly what color you're picking. It's gonna be red. You know that if you're feeling really, really sad, depressed, just down in the dumps, you associate that to the color blue. What's more is that this is gonna get a little bit tricky because we also want you to pick out a color scheme that this works with. You should have done the color theory worksheet that had all the different color groupings on it, those little color families, those little color stories. And you want to come up with a color that represents this object, and then you want to include some color scheme of that color. Bonus points if you can get all of the colors in the color scheme to have a meaning that is important to you. So, the emotions that I associate to my sister are generally very much loving, very caring, very kind. I think of my sister as being one of the most intelligent people I know. So I'm picking colors based on that. So in particular, I'm thinking of the loving and the kind, which we're generally going to associate to like pink or other light pale colors, usually pink or like red. Sometimes yellows will associate to caring and kindness. And I'm also going to pick out that my sister is intelligent. Intelligence oftentimes is related to cooler colors like blue or green. So those are the two that I'm going to kind of base around my color scheme. So I need something that kind of fits in like with a pinkish color, kind of a bluish color, or a bluish greenish. And to round those out, I tend to think of those as being very analogous, as long as you kind of fuse them a little bit with purple, because pink is an association of red, and green, while is a little bit too far out, you can squeeze it in towards blue-green, and blue and red are analogous once you put purple between them. So on my little watercolor palette, those are the colors that I've grabbed. I've grabbed a purple. I'm using liquid watercolor here, but you can do the same with regular watercolors or any water-soluble graphite, things of that nature. That is a ball of fuzz on my palm. So I've got some purple right here, some magenta, which is like a bright pink, and this one is a blue-green. So I have those colors that have those associations. Remember, all colors that you pick can be adjusted. For example, if you're wanting to do something about loving and kindness and all of that, and you're picking your pink colors, then darker pinks and lighter pinks are going to be similar to each other. But if you have darker colors, generally it's going to swing more negative, and if you have lighter colors, it's going to swing more positive. This is all mutable. I do want to have some value changes in here. That's one of the things that I have to start mixing up, is some value changes for my dark areas versus my middle areas versus my light areas versus my lightest areas. And depending on how I want this to swing, more negative emotion or more positive emotion, might tell me whether I swing this overall concept of it being a little bit more pale or a little bit more dark. In my case, again, loving, intelligence, all of that, tend to be very positive, so I'm gonna keep this a little bit on the paler side. I don't want it to be too dark anywhere. So I'm gonna get my colors, and the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start mixing my colors a little bit, because all of these are great colors, but I don't want them to be too dark, so I'm gonna have to mix at least these with a little bit more water to get them to thin out a little bit. And this is just part of using watercolors, is like the more water you add, the thinner they're gonna be, the more they're gonna mix with the white of the paper. So they're gonna be a little bit more pale. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do, is make some paler versions. And all I'm gonna do from here is once I have these mixed, I'm gonna have a few mixed colors between them as well. Once I have these mixed, I'm gonna go ahead and start putting in my colors onto my paper. And it is not something where I have natural colors. My skin is not green, my sister is not pink, all of that. My background is not It's a train, which was mostly white and red, actually. I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna mix some of my blue with some pink over here. I'm gonna see what this mixes into. This is the thing that most kids forget, is you can mix colors together. So I'm gonna have that one as a blue with my pink, and then over here I'm gonna mix some of my purple and my pink and get that mixed up. So now I have several different colors to choose from. I have the lighter version of a color, the darker version of a color, a mixed color, lighter, darker, darker, lighter, mixed. Now I have a multitude of values to choose from when painting this out. All right, I'm gonna get one more piece of paper so I can swatch these, and you can see what colors I'm working with, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get this painted, and I'll show you what that looks like in the end. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start my swatches with my purple. So my purple color, just straight, is gonna be more dark like this. I have my lightened one, which is a little bit paler. I do suggest that you swatch anything you are using, just because that is a smart plan. You don't want to put this down on paper and realize suddenly that you needed to make it like 5 shades lighter. The way that I'm realizing with this one right here, it's barely different from its plain self. So let's try that again. Much better. Now it's much more blushy. I've got that one. And the paler version. I've got my mixed color. And that one mixed could probably have a bit more pink to it. There we go. So now I have all of these colors that I can paint with. Generally, I'm going to pick darker ones for my darker areas, like my black might end up being this bright blue here, or even more of the straight purple, but I can kind of choose from there where I'm going. So be careful. Again, your pencil lines should be light to start. I might even go over this with an eraser a little bit just to make sure that I don't have anything too dark down, because once watercolor or anything water soluble goes over your pencil lines, you're not going to be able to erase them after that. They just stay frozen in place, like they've just been like glued on. So if you can see these lines super, super clearly, try erasing over them just a smidge so that they're a little bit less obvious. And then use your paper like a map. You want your lightest colors, like my light pink, or even my light purple, or I could even take my blue and make it a lot clearer by adding more water for all of these very, very light areas, and my darkest colors where I want dark areas. If you get that mixed up, add layers, it's your friend. If you have, though, something gets switched where this ends up darker than this, it's gonna stop making sense as a picture. So, useful, your friend. Yes, yes? Get busy. All right, so I'm not totally done, and you'll be able to see a finished version later, but you can kind of see what's happening, especially here in the hair, and what's going on with the clothes versus like the background. So my background, you can see I'm keeping it this nice pale color, so I got my palest pink that I had, and that's what I put in my background, and I even got a little bit of a gradient by adding more water in this direction, so I had a little bit of a value change in there. Meanwhile, this is my darkest color, and so I found my darkest kind of like indigo-y blue that I got from mixing my purple and my blue together, and that's what I'm using in all of this area, which actually creeped all the way up into my sister's eye. And so I'm starting to kind of like figure that out. Over here in the hair, I have my darker area of my hair and then the little fuzzy halo of flyaways that I had. So you can see that I have that darker section in there with a darker pink and then a medium pink right over here. I might still need to darken this medium pink because it's matching this light pink a little bit too much, but I'm gonna wait for it to dry first before I start doing that. And again, I'm starting to pick out my very darkest areas and making them my darkest value, and then my very lightest areas of my face and putting that in as my lightest value. And so I'm gonna need a slightly darker value for my skin and then a slightly darker value for this darker shadow inside my skin and under my nose and all of that. So once that gets done, then we will have a nice picture all done up, and as long as your shadows are in the right place, even if something isn't quite the same color, it should still make sense. If you want a little bit more continuity, if you're gonna have something like this is my sister's shoulder, so if I continue doing her skin pink, it will have a little bit of continuity, but that isn't entirely required. Again, as long as you're matching the color values and shifts over here, then you will you'll end up with something that makes a good amount of sense. All right. Bye.